Here's the EQ-5 module from LADIK. It's a 5-band EQ with 1 input and 1 output, and the 5 bands of EQ are 12.8 kHz, 3.2 kHz, 800 Hz, 200 Hz and 50 Hz. I run some basic waveforms through it, and then I'm going to shape some modular drum patches, some spring reverb and a bass sound at the end. I'll start with some white noise into the EQ, and I'm recording the EQ's output. I'm going to just play around with each EQ band so you get an idea of how that reacts. Moving on from noise now, here's a saw wave. And you can get some nice nasal qualities scooping out some of the EQ bands. Here's a square wave. There's lots of sound shaping on offer, which is fairly lacking in terms of Euro rack modules. There's not many options for EQ. Here's some simple modular drums being mixed and then sent into the EQ. I play around with the EQ just to show how that responds. It's really easy to fatten up the low ends in the kick and also add some sparkle and extra bite and clarity up in the top end as well. Here I've got the same drum loop, but I'm taking a copy of that into a spring reverb, and the spring reverb's output is going into the input on the EQ. So here's the EQ, and the spring reverb's output is going to colour that sound, and then I'm going to mix that back in with a dry sound. So there's a real crisp and bright top end in that reverb, but we can scoop all that out and then thicken the lows and the mids as well. And this also works really well on other effects and delays, and it gives you scope to sculpt the sound of the effects that can really make it easier to mix them underneath or on top of, or make them sit with other sounds within a mix. So to finish off, I'm going to use the same drum loop from before, but this time there's a little bit of a swing, slightly different rhythm to my clock. I've added a bass sound which I'm sending through the EQ, so I'm going to play around with that and you can just see how this responds again. So since getting the EQ, I've been using it quite a lot, often quite early in a patch, straight after an oscillator to actually sculpt that wave before it then goes into filters and VCAs and so on. It's nice to shape the waves with that EQ early on as opposed to adding EQ from hardware or software right at the end of a patch. It also makes effects like reverbs and delays sit really well in a mix, as you can play around with how they sound against the dry sound that's going in. And with 5 bands of EQ, you get much more scope than you would with just standard filtering. As always, feel free to ask any questions and hit like and subscribe below.